Hey y'all, welcome back to Twin Oaks Family Farm in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. We are here in the meat bird production barn, and we've got today and another day, and then it's transport day. So we've got a group of Cornish cross meat birds that are almost finished, 35 days old. So just gonna give you a look at these birds. They're really doing well. We started with 126, and the way we go by the count is we try to get a good count on them when we move them in. We order them from a hatchery, and they are shipped through the United States Mail, United States Postal Service, in boxes, and they're packed in a special way, and we get them and move them in. So we try to get a really good count established when we move the birds in, and then as we're raising them, unfortunately, sometimes there's flock loss during production while they're being raised. Could be from a variety of things. Sometimes it's just failure to thrive. Sometimes the bird was a runt. That can come from conditions during hatching. Sometimes there's things in control of us as producers, and sometimes things that are out of our control that affect the flock loss or survivability of the birds during production. But as far as keeping a count on them, we get that count in the beginning. We hope that it's really accurate, and then as we're going through production, anytime we have a flock loss, obviously we take that off of the count that we have, and then when we get out to the end of production, we've got it documented how many birds should be in the flock based on what we started with at the beginning for the count and how many we've lost. And then as we're loading them, actually on their last day here on farm, as we're loading them into the transport crates, which we got a bunch of them hung up over there, and we actually have some completing this temporary barrier wall here. But as we're loading the birds, we're counting them, and we try to put them into the crates by sets of 8, so 8 birds per crate. So we count them into the crates 8 at a time, and one person is doing the crate counts, like 8 in this crate, 8 in the next crate, 8 in the next crate, and then another person is counting each bird as individual progressively and keeping the count going. And then at the end, that's a check and balance to see if the 8 times however many crates matches up with the individual count that we got as we're loading them. So usually that check and balance, works out just right, because you're right there in the moment, and you have 2 people doing that, and each one is dedicated to their task and can focus on it. But we do sometimes find that the number we get on load and transport is different than the number we had documented on the calendar, and that could be because maybe we didn't get an accurate count in the beginning. We always know we've got an accurate count of flock loss, because that's something that is more sporadic, random, one at a time, hopefully very seldom throughout production. Wow, there's a nice looking bird. So 35 days old. So I want to finish the thought I had going there about the counting, but also wanted to get really close up on some of these birds, because it's hard to believe that at 35 days old they can be at a maturity of being ready to go to the processor. So they are. Now, if you kept them in production another week, they would be even bigger. And it doesn't mean they'd be more finished or better meat quality. It just means it'd be a bigger finished chicken, which is fine. We do like, our personal preference here, if it was chicken for our household, we would probably go to 6 weeks, because we do like a little bigger finished chicken, like 5.5, 6 pounds. But most of our clients want about a 4 to 4.5 pound whole chicken. So we need to be at about 5 weeks old on production. So they're actually going to go to the processor on day 37, and that gives them a couple more days here. So and that was a nice example there too, for all the the people that say Cornish rock cross meat chickens can't walk, well, that one got around pretty dang good right there. And that's a good representation of our entire flock, that individual is, as far as moving. So, oh, and there's one. They found a bug. So, I was talking about the count. So what could make my count wrong when we get to the end? What could account for us coming up with a different number that we load for transport than what I have documented on the calendar? And I had told you that, you know, when we get them, they come from a hatchery, they're shipped in, they're in special boxes, they come through the United States mail. This is a normal sleeping posture of a Cornish rock cross meat chicken at finish. So these birds would have already been up. They've been, you know, feed give to them, water give to them. They'd already been up and ate, drank, manured for the most part. So they're in a resting cycle of their daily routine. So, you know, we don't want to confuse what we're seeing. We don't want to say, well, those birds are all laying around because they're lazy and sedentary and their legs don't work and they can't move, because that isn't true. Because, you know, you see several, like there's some up at the water. There's some at the water there. You saw several moving around. You see this one was going after a bug there. It's still, there's one up. They can move. They're laying down and resting because that's part of their routine. They eat a lot to grow a lot, and they have to rest a lot, because when does growth happen? Growth happens during resting and sleeping. So they need to do this. So at any rate, but when we have them shipped in and they're in these boxes and you go to count them out of the boxes, there's like 100 in a box. So you've got a lid on the box that it's all cardboard box, but the way the box is made, it's kind of quartered, and then the lid, you can kind of use it as one side of it as a flap. So as you're putting that flap up and then back down and getting these birds out, at the same time we're also taking the birds and dipping their beak into water. So imagine you're one person unloading several hundred birds out of boxes, and you've got to do the watering piece of it. So I have to take them out of the box one at a time, make sure I get the box flap closed back down again, and then take the bird with both hands most likely and dip the beak into water, and then set the bird down gently on the flooring. So there are occasions when we've had, in the process of unpacking the boxes and taking care of the birds, we've maybe had one jump out of the box that could be unaccounted for. So, or, you know, or sometimes you just make a mistake and you like double up a count on a single bird. So sometimes there can be a mistake on my part or on the unpacking part in the counting of the flock initially. And so if we have that mistake initially, we're going to have that mistake at the end. But I know you would think, like at any given time during production, I know you would think that it should be really easy to get a count on these birds. But when you start counting them, sometimes it's just like a sea of white feathers, and your brain goes, did I count that one or not? So, you know, so we sometimes attempt to count them during production, but for the most part, we don't anymore. For the most part, we try to get that initial count. We try to do the best we can on getting a good initial count. And then, of course, we're paying attention to the flock throughout production. And then we really rely on the count at the end. So like here we are at day 35. We have all day today to raise them, all day tomorrow when they're day 36. And then when it's day 37, we're going to come out here way before daylight, and we're going to just very calmly pick up the birds gently and carefully, one at a time, and load them into those crates. They'll lay down flat, so the part that's against the wall will be against the floor. And on the top, you can see there's a lid. It just slides back and forth. So there'll be 5 of us working together, and we load the birds one at a time, and we count them. And that's the count that we rely on to go to the processor. And that's pretty much the first question the processor asks us when we get to the processing place: how many birds? And so, you know, we want that count to be accurate. But anyway, so we'll get that accurate count then. but definitely wanted y'all to have the opportunity to see, you know, well, what does a Cornish rock cross meat chicken look like at 35 days old? I don't have a weight on them. Honestly, we've got practice raising them, and we really go by visual observation, and that indicates to us, are these birds ready or not? And I will tell you straight out, like day 32, even 32, 33, I was still saying to myself, oh man, 37 days is all we have. Are they going to be big enough? But I've said in other videos, Cornish rock cross meat chickens grow fast in the beginning, and then they grow faster at the end. And that is what happens. As you get closer and closer to the end of production, their appetite gets a little heavier, and their rate of growth compounds, gets a little faster. And so that's why really you can end up with that finish. And we do have probably 3 or 4 birds that are not uniform with the flock, that are a little smaller, but these birds are ready to go to the processor. So we're going to be okay at day 37. So now the trick is keep them alive for 2 more days. So, and it's going to be really hot. But now I want you to kind of, if you can get a sense of what we're seeing here, the birds are pretty evenly spread out throughout their area. And we actually have, sorry I turned you in a circle, that can kind of get you dizzy, but we actually have a north door and a south door. We have good airflow through here. And at this juncture, we actually have the east and west doors open too. So we're getting cross ventilation, you know, that is really noticeable in here. So I know it's helping the birds. And we had put down some new bedding yesterday here in the center, which they've kind of dispersed from it now because I'm in here, but they'll come back to it. But we had put down some new bedding that helps them cool down, and we added waters. So we did only have, like, there was 1, 2, 3 5-gallon waters, and then we had about 4 of the single gallons in there, and we added almost 10-gallon of water in single waters in last night into these other random places throughout the pen. And that really helps them in the heat. Because even when it's hot, if your birds are doing well and there's water available, they'll get up and go get water. And if they aren't getting up to go get the water, take the water to them. Because when it's hot, they really need to keep drinking the water. They don't necessarily need to eat in the hottest part of the day. So, you know, if it's really hot, like, that can wait. They can eat later when it cools down. But we need to keep the water to them. And they will get to where, you know, if it's really hot, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 90 degrees Fahrenheit with Cornish rock cross meat chickens this age, they won't get up and go to the water. But if you bring the water closer to where they are, then they will. When we set all these little waters in here on their day 34, they circled up around all of them. And there was rings of Cornish rock cross meat chickens around each one of these waters, because it had been a hot afternoon. And we recognized, you know, they're needing some relief. So water, fresh water was enough. It satisfied them, and it got them through the afternoon. So they'll utilize that again today and on day 36, I'm sure. So, and then the other thing on day 37, I'm going to mention, we want to have done feed withdrawal, total feed withdrawal, before we take them to the processor. So they're going to leave for the processor like by 6 a.m. on day 37. And we want to have taken feed away 12 to 18 hours prior to actually the start of processing, which may be 8 o'clock if they're first in line. But if they're not first in line, it'll be later in the day. So if we kind of go by 8 a.m. on day 37 and count back 12 hours, that takes us to 8 p.m. on day 36. And then we could go back another 6 hours, which would take us to 2 p.m. on day 36. But we know, so that's the range of when we want to do feed withdrawal, from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. on day 36, in order to have them ready for processing at 8 a.m. on day 37. But we know they may go later, so if we withdraw feed slightly later than 2 p.m. on day 36, that's probably okay. And so that's one thing you want to plan for. So probably by 3 p.m. on day 36, we'll take feed away from them. So for this flock, we bought 1,000 pounds of feed before they moved in, because we had 125 chicks coming in, and we really would have planned 1,000 pounds of feed would have been our usual plan for 100 Cornish rock cross meat chickens for 6 weeks. So we had 25 extra chickens, but we had, 5 days less that we had to feed them. So we decided to stick with the 1,000 pounds. That's our reference point. Our reference point is actually 10 pounds per bird to finish them in 6 weeks. But we stuck with the 1,000 pounds because we had that variance. Even though we had 25 more birds, we had a week less production length. So we have distributed 1,000 pounds. So that's the feed pallet. All the feed is off of it. All the feed has been put in. So that was the plan, though, at this juncture on day 35, to go ahead and make sure all the feed is in the feeders, so that they have all day 35 and overnight into day 36 and most of day 36 to hopefully finish up all of that feed and eat it all. So they'll have consumed 1,000 pounds in 37 days. So they just had a little reaction. They noticed some dogs came into the barn, into the building on the other side of their short wall, and they reacted to it. So they will settle back down. It's going to be okay. But we will make sure they have eaten that 1,000 pounds in 37 days has been the goal. So then we'll take it away on day 36. And that total feed withdrawal is, of course, to give their bodies the opportunity to eliminate all the feed from the crop and from the digestive system, and also to not have any formed manure in their system, like in the intestines. We want them to have the opportunity to digest everything they've eaten and get it all eliminated from their system prior to being in the processor's system. So that's the beginning of that total feed withdrawal. You get the feed taken away, and then in addition to that, though, you leave the water. In order to facilitate digestion, they need water and they need to move around a little bit. So once you take feed away, you don't want your birds necessarily, all right, you guys are fine. You don't want your birds just sitting around. You want them to get some water, and you want them to be able to move around some. So we'll continue to make sure they have water, and we'll continue to do like an exercise the broilers routine, where we come in and we walk around the pen and we ask the birds to move around and to walk and to use their legs. And that will keep them, there goes, guys. Can y'all see the teddy bear dog out there? The dogs were walking around the building and the birds were given a little bit of reaction to that. But so anyway, so we try to keep it calm and cool and stress-free for all the birds. But once we take feed away, total feed withdrawal, we will try to keep them on a little exercise routine every hour or so to get up and move around. And we'll definitely keep water to them. And there was, well, now you can't see him, there was the Dotson was at the wall and had his feet up on the wall. So they had him stirred up a little bit. But that's, no harm, no foul. The birds need to get and move around anyway. So I was fixing to exercise them too. So I actually will walk them around again and kind of get them redistributed into this center area so that they're not packed back into those corners. But we'll do feed withdrawal on day 36 and load them on day 37. And this group is just about ready to go. This is how we make chicken, folks. Real good chicken comes from real chickens raised with good livestock management practices. God bless y'all. Thanks for joining us on Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. We hope you'll love the video with a like and give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel, and please leave us some comments. We love to read your feedback, and we genuinely try to reply to everyone.